What's good, family? I'm Nikisha Elise Williams, the host of Black and Published podcast and the author of the novel The Seven Daughters of Dupree. This historical fiction novel is about the secrets kept between mothers and daughters over the course of 7 generations and is told backwards in time from 1995 to 1860. I have an excerpt from the novel for you today. The audiobook is narrated by Bonnie Turpin, and this scene you're about to listen to is from chapter 15 and features the character Nadia, who was writing a letter detailing her fears about her pregnancy.
How do you carry a child in fear? Step 1. It starts with him not being here. Step 2. Forget the fairy tales. Step 3. Remember the lies. I'm going to leave my wife. I don't want to live my life without you. Step 4. Replay the reaction when you told him the news. What the hell you want me to do? You know I already got a ball and 3 chains. Step 5. Sing to yourself, is my living in vain? Step 6. Pray. Step 7. Break the news to Mama. Step 8. Go to church with her. Step 9. Be mortified by her testimony filled with your shame. Step 10. Explore all options. Keep it, adoption, abortion. Step 11. Make a decision. Step 12. Doubt decision. Step 13. Repeat steps 10, 11, and 12 until you're 3 months out from your due date. Step 14. Realize it's too late. Step 15. Try to tell him again. Step 16. Find out he's moved. Step 17. Make a plan. Step 18. Doubt the plan. Step 19. Cry uncontrollably, inconsolably, until you're out of tears. Step 20. Remember step 1. He's not here.
I hope you enjoyed that scene from The Seven Daughters of Dupree, narrated by Bonnie Turpin. The novel is available everywhere books are sold and in whatever format you prefer: hardcover, ebook, audiobook, and large print. So, if you can, please consider getting a copy of The Seven Daughters of Dupree today. Now, let's get to the episode.
There's never going to be a day where I'm going to write something that's inauthentic and it has my name on it. I can't do it.
What's good? I'm Nikisha Elise Williams, and this is Black and Published on the Mahogany Books Podcast Network, bringing you the journeys of writers, poets, playwrights, and storytellers of all kinds. Today's guest is Ashley M. Jones, author of the poetry collection Lullaby for the Grieving. It's a deeply personal look at what it means to find and lose love at the same time of unprecedented political turmoil.
Writing a lot of my poems can be re-traumatizing for me, to reread the history or learn something new that's horrible or go back to a memory of something that's painful. Even though there's that pain there, something about the act of making the art is healing. It makes me feel like something is transforming.
At 31 years old, Ashley M. Jones became the Poet Laureate of Alabama. She was both the youngest and the first person of color ever to hold that title. The amplified pressure she faced stepping into the role for a 4-year term. Plus, what she's learned about creating a sustainable writing practice. And the reason she says writing love poems feels unnatural. That and more is next, when Black and Published continues. All right, so Ashley, when did you know that you were a writer?
Well, a writer and a poet, those are two separate stories. I always knew that I loved to write. Since I was very, very young, I've been a huge reader. My mom taught me and my siblings how to read when we were super, super young before we went to school. And so that was our fun thing that we did. We watched PBS and we read books and we made art. So I knew as a very young girl that I loved to write, and I used to write stories. I thought that's what I was going to do for a living, was be a mystery writer. In hindsight, might have had more money if I went down that path, but that's okay. We make poetry work, for us. But when I was 7 years old, that's when I knew that poetry was my calling. So I had kind of gone through what I call a racial existential crisis. I experienced racism when I was 5. And that kind of took me on this journey. I had low self esteem because when you're a child, or when you're an adult, frankly, it's hard to process when someone discriminates against you. And so as a kid, I was just trying to figure out, who am I and how do I reconcile what my parents have told me, which is that being Black is a blessing, it's wonderful, it's to be celebrated, with the way that I was treated by someone. How do
What
I make it
happened?
all? So my friend in kindergarten, I had this friend. He was a white boy, and we were thick as thieves. We were always playing together. We would go around the stations in our classroom together. Our favorite station was the play kitchen, and we would pretend to be married because we had the same last name. And so we were just children, playing, having fun. And his parents, I think his family, maybe his grandfather or somebody, his family came to visit, which was pretty normal at that school. Parents were always kind of coming, dropping by to see what was going on. And I remember that day that they came, they were looking at us. And I didn't know at 5 what the look meant, but I knew something was happening. And that next day, when I went to play like I had for the entire year, that boy said, "You can't play. I'm playing with this girl." And the girl that he replaced me with was white. I went to every station and they said, "No, you can't play with us. You can't play with us." And I couldn't understand why. And so, of course, being a child, I said, "Oh, it must be something wrong with me.
Mm.
I'm different than her. So she must be right. I must be wrong," which was not what I was taught. I was taught that I was good and wonderful as I was made. But when something happens like that, you just can't quite help but come to these wrong conclusions. And so when I was 7, it had been 2 years since that incident, and I was still kind of grappling with everything. And books, as I said, were my refuge. And I had kind of stopped reading books about Black history because I just felt sad. Not that it's sad to learn Black history, but I just kept thinking about what I felt like when that incident happened. And so it just so happened that one week I had a book in my library stack called Honey, I Love by Eloise Greenfield. And as I was reading the book, I was just kind of thrilled to see these poems about Black children, about their feelings. It was written in the 70s, I think. So all the kids had afros. And so it was like, oh, these kids have hair like mine. It's something familiar. And there was also a poem in there about Harriet Tubman, called Harriet Tubman. And so that particular week in my class, so I was in self contained gifted, we had this assignment to take something that we had been reading that week, memorize some portion of it, and come to class at the end of the week in a costume related to the thing that we had memorized and recite that thing. So I memorized Harriet Tubman. And I used to be very shy as a child. I hated speaking in front of people. But I came to class and my mom came and helped me dress up as Harriet Tubman. I stood in front of that class and I recited the poem. Harriet Tubman didn't take no stuff, wasn't scared of nothing neither, didn't come in this world to be no slave, and wasn't going to stay one either. And the poem goes on. But as I recited that poem, I still remember how I felt. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I felt proud. I felt secure. I felt powerful. And I felt connected to my history in a way that I hadn't quite felt before. Even having been raised by parents who made sure we knew every last drop of our history, there was just something transformative in the way that the words felt coming out of my mouth, and the way that poetry feels when you read it. It's like an IV straight to your soul. And from that day on, I went home that day, pulled out my spy journal because I was obsessed with Harriet the Spy. But I took out that notebook and I started writing poetry, and I haven't stopped.
I love this story, even though the origins are heartbreaking. But it seems like all these years later, 30 some odd years later, you're still grappling with what happened to you when you were 5. Like there's a line in this collection about kindergarten and not being able to play, as well as there's a whole series of poems dedicated to Harriet Tubman.
Mm-hmm.
What was your guiding light beyond that moment to make a life of poetry? And did you see that modeled for you as you were trying to do it?
Yeah, the journey was interesting. It was not easy to imagine this future. Certainly, just wanting to be a poet professionally, like that's already hard to imagine, because the famous ones, but like, how did they get famous? How did they get to be who they were? But then as a Black kid, I started from 7 being super confident. I wrote about what I wanted to. I felt empowered. Like all the things I'm writing about now, I was writing about as a 7-year-old. That is who I really am. But as I got a little bit older and I went to art school from 7th to 12th grade, being at a school where in my department there weren't that many Black people, and looking around the workshop table and not seeing people who looked like me, writing my little Black poems and having them misunderstood at the table, that was really hard. And I still remember the first living Black poet I ever saw in real life. Her name is Honoré Fanon Jeffers.
Friend to the show.
And
She's been on twice.
yeah, everybody knows she's famous. Like she is famous with a capital F. But she came to my school and I just remember being like, "Oh my gosh, we're real. Like we're not just these historical things that we learn about in February. Like we actually can be poets and be alive and be Black people." Like it blew my mind, but it was still difficult because she was one person who I didn't see every day. And I was also, trying to fit in and trying to sound like a poet. And by that, I mean a white poet, because that's what I was surrounded by. And so it wasn't until I was in like the end of undergrad and definitely throughout grad school that I was exposed to more living poets. And I began to come back to why I actually write. Like, I'm not writing to sound like other people. I'm writing to me first. And that's what is the most important. And so I began to see what a life could look like as a poet. First of all, a sustainable writing practice that honored what I actually wanted to do, but also in my grad program, working with published poets who were active in the field, attending readings, attending conferences, and learning practically what it was like or what I needed to do to actually do this as a career, how to make money, how to navigate publishing. So it wasn't until I was in grad school, really. I didn't get here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what
The
you need to
blueprint.
do. Mm-hmm.
What does a sustainable writing practice look like to you?
I think the first thing it looks like is understanding my own process. When you're like going through writing education, you get a lot of advice from a lot of teachers about what is the best way to do writing. A lot of people will say, write every day, write in the morning, write whatever time they say you should write. I learned throughout my time going through school that doesn't work for me. It is unsustainable for me to force myself to write. That is a great way for me to stop writing because I'm going to be like, this is a job. Like, this is some other force is making me do it. And that's not why I started. I started because something touched my spirit, and I can't force my spirit to speak. Like, it has to speak when it's ready. Of course, there's things that complicate that. Like, I have deadlines to meet. I'm trying to get these checks. I got to do things on time, but still, I try to keep protection around the deep reason that I'm doing it. Even if I'm doing something that is commissioned, a lot of these poems in this book were commissioned during my time as poet laureate. Even if somebody's given me, here's what I need you to write about, here's when it's due, I still have to find my doorway into it. If I can't walk in the door as Ashley into that prompt, I can't do the prompt, or I'm gonna have to change what you asked me to do, because there's never gonna be a day where I'm gonna write something that's inauthentic and it has my name on it. I can't do it because then it's over for me. And so for me, sustainability in that way looks like honoring my authentic voice and trying to protect the process that works for me. What's unsustainable, and I'm trying to work on this, is that I'm an overworker. So I'm often just like booked to the hilt when I don't need to be, and I'm not making time for rest. And that also impacts the writing. If I'm just so tired, I can't even receive anything, like it's over. So I'm working on it, but I have a few ways of being sustainable, but I'm not perfect.
Let's talk about you becoming the Poet Laureate of Alabama at 31 years old, the first Black person, the youngest person
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
its 93-year history.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
What a time. So I just turned 35 a couple weeks ago. It hasn't been so long, but it also feels like a lifetime has passed since that moment when I found out I was going to be poet laureate. I will say I did not realize I was going to be the first person of color, period. Like, that's maybe even more egregious, that no one else, not anyone from any other,
Ethnicity or background, yeah.
I figured I might be the youngest. I kind of was doing some math on that. But the first person of color, I hadn't even thought about that. Like, it was not even on my radar. I naively, even though I study this history, I was like, well, surely I'm not going to be the first anything. This is 2021. Like, there's no way. And of course, I know that makes no sense to even say in this country, but I just wasn't thinking about it. So when the historian of the organization who does this process confirmed these things, I was like, oh no, I don't want to let anybody down. Like, the pressure started coming in immediately. I was like, okay, I don't want to fail the Black community. I don't want to fail Alabamians. I don't want to fail poets. It just became like, oh no, being the first, I'm proud to have broken this barrier, but also this is making me hope that I don't let everybody down. Hopefully, me is enough for them. And over these 4 years, that's been true. I have found that people have been so supportive of so many things that I've wanted to do, and that they are just looking for me to be me. That's all anybody's ever asked of me in the state of Alabama. But it was insane to think how many years had passed and to then be thrust into all this national, international media. I didn't see that coming at all. When the producer emailed me to ask me to come to Good Morning America, I thought it was a scam. I was like, there's no way. There's no way you want me. Like, I'm not anybody, right? Like, why do you want me? So things like that began to happen. And that pressure was there still the whole time, almost amplified. I'm representing my state, like, for real, for real.
Mm-hmm.
People are looking at me or looking to me or looking for me to, whatever, fail, succeed, whatever.
You talk about a lot of the pieces in this collection, Lullaby for the Grieving, being commissioned under your time as the Poet Laureate of Alabama. And a lot of the poems in this collection that are not about your active grief of losing your father and other loved ones are reckoning with the racial history and fuckery of this country, especially and specifically the South.
Yeah.
And you say that you've received nothing but love from Alabama. So has there been any tension around what you write and telling those truths in a place that is part of this regime's goal to erase all of that history that is in their soil and on their land and in their landmarks and monuments?
The short answer is, if somebody's mad, they haven't told me. They have stayed wherever they are, which I appreciate them for. Please do stay wherever you are. I don't need that.
Stay mad and stay away.
Okay. The thing about Alabama that I think people don't always get, especially if like people have never been here, people will see what our government is talking about, or people who are in Congress who are representative, quote unquote, of our state. They see in history George Wallace, a loudmouth from Alabama. They see all of these things and they think that they understand who Alabamians actually are. Of course, there are the people who have voted these people in. I'm not saying they didn't. But what I am saying is that while we're looking at that side, we have to also look at what did happen here. We were the birthplace of so many revolutionary movements. Even the Black Panther Party started in Alabama. So we can't lose that part of what the Deep South is. We do have people who are committed to liberation and freedom. And we do, even with the people who may have voted those others in, we do have people who care about people here in the South. And so, no, I haven't received any tension or haven't felt any tension. I have heard people outside of Alabama actually say, I didn't know what to expect when I read the title of your book. My last book was called Reparations Now. But hearing you, I think I see what you're saying. Or I've had the experience in another state, which will remain unnamed, but a Midwestern state where I went, and the leader of the school, I found out the day that I got there that my reading had not been advertised because the board was nervous about what I would say. Was it Indiana? No. I've had those types of experiences. I have seen discrimination outside of the state. It's not that I've never seen it here, but like as far as being received by people, here people have literally just been happy to see me. All of that to say, yes, we have, and by we, I really do mean the whole country, because it's not just the South that's involved in these things. We do have issues, many issues, but we also have humans here who are not evil. We're not a monolith here in Alabama. And I think when it comes down to it, Southerners are usually going to be polite. They may not be kind, but they're always going to be polite. And so I've just experienced people being nice to me, or being polite, being receptive, inviting me to their cities, to their libraries. Even if the audience is homogenous racially, people were still very kind to me.
So this is your fourth poetry collection. Again, you have the grand accolade of being the Poet Laureate of Alabama until 2026 when this episode will come out. You talked earlier about getting the blueprint of how to make a life as a professional poet a bit earlier. Can you take me through your publishing journey? Because as you said, your last book was Reparations Now. Your first book was Magic City Gospel, which I'm just like, do I need to go pick this up? Because those two things, titles don't seem to go together based on what I know of the term Magic City. Maybe my head is in the wrong place.
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
See,
It's
I
not.
was
It's not that
like,
Magic City. It's not that.
what's happening here down in the valley?
Birmingham is called the Magic City because of the steel and the iron ore, and how the city came up as if by magic because of that industry. It's not the strip club. So
Okay, thank you for teaching me something on today. Can you walk me through your publishing journey?
oh my gosh. Not Magic City. That's hilarious. Let me answer the question you asked. I went to grad school to get my MFA. I went into it thinking I want to finish this 3 years with a publishable body of work. So when I began, every single assignment I was given, I was like, okay, you got to put yourself into everything. Everything you write needs to be something usable. Now, I wasn't thinking, here's what the book is going to be about. I had no idea what the book was going to be. I just let myself be led through all of these assignments. And so by the end of 3 years, it was time to put together my thesis. And this process has lasted throughout my writing career. I'll just let myself write for about 3 years. And as poets, we're obsessed with the same 5 things forever. Whatever you're obsessed with in that particular time period, even if you don't know they're all speaking to each other, it's going to come together in the end. So when I put the book together for my thesis, I knew that I was going to want to go ahead and submit that to book contests. And my mentor, Denise Duhamel, she told me that one rule that she follows is that if 30% of the poems have been published individually, at that point, that's when you send to the full length book contests. And so I did that. I had been publishing throughout my master's program, and I sent out work to first book contests, which is largely how poets are published in their first book. And so I was a finalist for 3 of those contests: the New Southern Voices Prize from Hub City Press, the National Poetry Series, and I want to say the Crab Orchard Review series I was also a finalist for. I didn't win New Southern Voices or Crab Orchard, and I was waiting to hear back from National Poetry Series, which was like the dream. But I ended up not winning that. And while I was waiting, Hub City approached me and said, hey, our board really loves this book. So we know you didn't win, but would you consider us anyway to publish this book? And I signed a contract, and the rest is history. I mean, my second book, I did another contest for, and I won that contest through Pleiades Press. But at that time, Hub City wasn't publishing second and third books. They were just doing first books. And so after some leadership changes and some time had passed, when my third book was ready, I sent an email and said, hey, I really love working with y'all. I have a book, ready. And so now I'm just kind of with Hub City for my poetry collections. So the last one and this one, of course, are on Hub City Press. And that's kind of how I've published my standalone books. I do have an anthology that I've edited called What Things Cost. I was brought into that project by my co-editor, Rebecca Gale Howell. That's with the University Press of Kentucky. And in April, I have my first nonfiction book coming out. It is partially personal essay, partially critical essay. So I'm kind of dipping into my PhD bag already. That book is called What the Mirror Said, The Necessity of Black Women in Poetry. And that book is through the Poets on Poetry series from the University of Michigan Press. And that was a crazy, like, somebody reached out to me moment. It was during that like blow up of 2021 when I had just been named Poet Laureate and I was doing all this media, and the editor of that series reached out and said, hey, do you want to write a book? And I said, sure. And that book was like 3 years late because I underestimated how the grief process and all the stuff I was doing as Poet Laureate would just kind of derail my ability to write quickly. So that's been the path so far.
And then as far as you being with Hub City Press for not just your first book, but for your third and now fourth collections, is that rare for poets to just have like a permanent home for their work whenever they're ready?
No, you want to get to a point where a press will just kind of adopt you and give you, I think it's called like first look or first rights, where before you go outside of their press, you have to give them the manuscripts It feels very secure, honestly. I mean, to know that I don't have to go back to the rat race with my books of poetry, that I can just kind of focus on this is what I want to write. I have a press who's behind me. They are so supportive. I mean, Hub City is like the best ever. They're not based in New York, so they're not one of the big five, but they are a preeminent Southern press. They are publishing the best work coming out of the South. And they really make an effort to expand that definition of Southern. We're not just talking about Faulkner, like there's other people who write in the South, and they are committed to creating space for all of us to write and to express who we are.
And you mentioned as a poet, you're obsessed with the same 5 things, and your process is whatever you've written over the last 3 years or whatever the period is, then that's usually what the collection is about. And you have also mentioned that in that 3-year period from when you were named Poet Laureate, you were grieving. And as this collection, Lullaby for the Grieving, eloquently lays out, you were grieving the loss of your father, as well as the loss of a cousin and another friend. What did grief teach you about poetry?
I think what grief taught me about poetry is that what I thought was true about what poetry does is actually true. So I've always said, like, I use poetry to process, I use it to understand myself in the world, which I was doing. But grief puts you in a place where nothing makes sense. Like, there's nothing in this world that is right side up anymore now that my dad is gone. And writing the poems about him was one way I was able to start piecing something back together that seemed like reality. Do you know what I mean? Like, even just acknowledging that he was here, because that's another part that I didn't expect when my dad died. It became almost like we even ask each other, me and my family, was he even here? It almost seems like we made it all up. And these poems have helped me to reach back, to reach through whatever is the barrier between here and not here, and speak to him, remember him, celebrate him. So grief has really taught me that poetry was not purely an academic pursuit. It is what Audre Lorde said it was, which is something vital for our survival. It is finding that light within us and naming it. It is social action. It is remembering those who we've lost. And so I think grief has really asked me to confirm what it is I'm doing and why. And it's shown me that what I'm doing is the thing that's going to help me make it through.
And so, with that said, can you read some pieces from Lullaby for the
Of
Grieving so that we can
course.
get into the collection?
Of course.
Lullaby for the Grieving by Ashley M. Jones is Ashley's 4th full-length poetry collection, but what's considered her most deeply personal work to date. How the deaths of her father and other loved ones coincided with her falling in love and stepping into the largest role of her career that coalesced into the raw vulnerability that make up the 39 poems in this collection. Here's Ashley.
I think I'll read the title poem first, Lullaby for the Grieving. This poem, it took a lot for me to get this poem written. I had to do hiking, and I don't really hike like that. So, Lullaby for the Grieving at the Sipsey River. Make small steps. In this wild place, there are signs of life everywhere. Sharp spaces, too. The slip of a rain-glazed rock against my searching feet. Small steps, like prayers, each one a hope exhaled into the trees. Please, let me enter. Please, let me leave whole. There are, too, the tiny sounds of faraway birds, the safety in their promise of song, the puddle forming finally after summer rain, the golden butterfly against the cave dark. Maybe there are angels here, too. What else can I call the crown of light atop the leaves? What else can I call my footsteps forward? Small, small, sure. And then I had marked a tonally different also poem called Watcher Woman, or Upon Seeing a Grown White Man Look a Black Girl Up and Down as She Passed By on a Birmingham Street. So I write about anything that I see, anything that I experience. And also, I know I'm not good at fighting, so the poems have to do it for me. I wanted to fight this man, but I know good and well I can't just walk up to a grown man and punch him. So I wrote the poem instead. And this poem is in a form called The Golden Shovel, after my favorite poem by Lucille Clifton, which is called What the Mirror Said. So if you read down the right margin of the poem, you will see the entirety of Lucille Clifton's poem, What the Mirror Said. Watch a woman, or upon seeing a grown white man look a black girl up and down as she passed by on a Birmingham street. I've got my eyes on you. Listen, I'm a warrior woman. I'm a watcher woman looking at you, look at my children as they pass you by. Oh, you thought no one was checking for a black girl? Ha! Wonder who told you that. Must have been a conquering man, a murderer of an ancient city who said, who will care what becomes of these people we steal? Who will answer for a black woman? I will. I'm watching you. Don't matter if you got a degree, a badge, a title, some land, a whole geography of your own. I will listen every time you breathe the wrong way. Every time somebody looking like me feels like they need help, like they need a hero. Ain't nowhere on the map you can go to escape my eyes. Please understand, I'm on to you. Been on since somebody came around in 1492 talking about, I need directions. We were trying to go to India. Move out the way. No room for more conquering around here. No room for you. Listen, no room for you in any black woman. No room for you nowhere. Not even in this country, this street, this body. You are a no place, anonymous man. I saw you looking wrong at a black girl as she passed by, and mister, I got a problem with that. I'm making this my problem, buddy. Make sure your hands don't act on the plans your eyes make. I'm watching you. I'll watch and watch around the whole bloody world until I got my eye on anyone making plans for pain, anyone claiming us as his, anyone with a reaping hook for hands. Like Jesus on the sparrow, my eye is fixed on you, on any Dr. Sims, Dr. Death, Mr. Man who sees us as some playground, some discardable skin. I do give a damn about a black girl's body.
Thank you. One more.
One more. Ooh, let's see. How about the first poem in the book?
Yes, because that's a hell of a way to start a poem, to start a collection. My God.
Yeah.
I have requests. But that's one of them. Go ahead.
I try to be spicy when I can, which is maybe all the time. I don't know. But I wrote this poem right when everybody was popping off about CRT. And our governor was like, we're never going to teach CRT. We hadn't been, but whatever. She was making all these statements. And I was at the time a public high school teacher. So like by law, I couldn't even like say the phrase CRT. So I said, let me do an acrostic. So it's in there, but only if you know to read down that left side. And I hope that this poem would show, as the title says, what it really is that we're talking about. What it really is. Coastline broke into forest, into village. Seas rolled in uninterrupted waves. Somewhere, I insisted on being born. Somewhere, countless tribes called each other by name. Somewhere, a black panther inches ever closer to its prey. Somewhere, the sun is a halo. Cameroon is a whisper in my blood. The ancestry kit tells me as it uses DNA to glue me back together. Can it catch long strands of lineage shucked and punched to pulp? Somewhere, a clot rubs its rigid way into my veins. It calls itself America. And the seas were parted with my body over and over. Centuries are cut into the skin stretched across my womb. Will every lifted voice be silenced? When does a theory become a threat? I return to the coastline, village, bright arc, halo of sun. All this has been bloodied, even my body, a wound infinitely. Earth spins on an unfair axis. Streets curdle, again, blood. Oh, come back, coastline. Come back, unshipped sea. Remember the way my people were robbed of bone and breath? You called it liberty.
In thinking about the time that this collection was written in
Mm-hmm.
2021 till now,
Mm-hmm.
a lot has
Mm-hmm.
happened. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you were named Poet Laureate, but there was also January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
There was the whole uprisings that weren't of 2020, as we see the immediate backlash of 2020.
Immediate. Lord.
And so, as much as this collection is about the grief that you feel for your lost loved ones and your kin, it's
Mm-hmm.
also the grief over this country and what
Mm-hmm.
it means to be and exist as a Black woman in this country. How do you hold those two things daily to even write about them when sometimes it can be too hard to hold or to touch?
I don't write about it every day because some days all I can do is turn off my brain and try to just make it. I do think, though, even though writing a lot of my poems can be re traumatizing for me, to reread the history or learn something new that's horrible or go back to a memory of something that's painful, even though there's that pain there, something about the act of making the art is healing. And I don't mean that in like a therapy kind of way. I just mean like it makes me feel like something is transforming. Again, I'm going to go to Audre Lorde. She has an essay about transforming silence into action. And I think writing poetry for me is doing something like that. It's taking all of these feelings, which I feel like I can never really express in my regular life. I can't tell everybody who's committing microaggressions that they're doing that, because sometimes it's somebody who's could decide your fate at work. We'll say it that way. You don't want to retaliate, or it's going to be too much energy to explain, well, this is why this makes me feel this way, whatever. In poetry, I can take that thing and transform it into something that's clear, that expresses exactly how I feel, that explores all the questions I have, and that leaves space for me to just kind of like float in some sort of safe, I don't know, like soul river, like something that holds you. That's kind of how it feels.
So then the inverse of a question I asked you earlier, what has poetry taught you about grieving?
I can't escape it, and that there is no timeline. There is no A to Z. It's often like A to P, back to E, then to Z, then wait, go back to A. Like it's not a linear thing. And I already believe that about time. I don't think that the past to future line is really one line. And grief is similar. I mean, writing these poems has shown me that some days I'm totally okay, in quotes, with what happened. And some days I'm literally right back in the moment I had to look at my father's dead body in the hospital. Sometimes I am right back there. And there's not a certain amount of time that makes me not able to go right back to that moment. But I think it's also teaching me that even though this is a nonlinear entity, grief, that there is value in finding those unexpected moments along the way. Like when my dad died that same year, I met the love of my life. Never would I have thought that I could feel those two feelings together. And my boyfriend, he's a poet as well. And he lost his dad 8 months before I lost mine. So we're both kind of in it. But there is something, it's just insane to think I can be at the lowest of the low, thinking I can't even go on. And somehow also find this person who makes me feel so alive. Like it's just insane to keep in your mind. But the poetry has kind of taught me just let your life go on. See where it goes. It's not going to be easy every day, but there's value in all of it.
You brought it up, so I'm gonna go through the door because
Oh,
I was
no.
like, I peeped it. I was like, oh, she loved him real bad. Yes, I'm here for it. But being able to express that level of love and affection and
Mm-hmm.
adoration for someone while also feeling the intensity of your grief, has
Mm-hmm.
that helped you not only in the writing and the art, but also in the healing.
You know, I have an interesting relationship with men.
Don't we all?
I tell you, I have not written a real love poem in my entire life. Not for a man, anyway. They're always in my other books. It's always like, here's how you did me wrong. Here's the weird thing you did. I didn't love you anyway. Like, it's always that. And this,
Until now.
right until now, like, this is a man who, like, I'm planning to marry. We're planning to have children. Like, I did not think I was going to be able to find someone who is an artist, because we're a little bit interesting, who was the man of my literal dreams. Like, I didn't think it was going to happen. And I certainly didn't think I would be writing poems that had no crumb of irony in them. Like, that's not how I roll with poems about men. There's always, like, you're cool, but, you know. So it was very vulnerable. And I think I was just in that space because writing about my dad's passing, I can't hide. So it was very scary to write these poems. There's only two. That's the most I can give. It's two love poems. But it was so weird to write about something that's so like mushy. And I had to just let go of the idea that like everything has to be a literary masterpiece. I'm not saying they're bad poems, but like sometimes as poets, we tend to stay in the dark, the darkness. That's where we really shine. And when something is just so like happy and sappy, it just feels unnatural, do you know? So I did it. I don't know if I'm gonna do it anymore, but
Why unnatural?
I talk about this to my students a lot. Like, writing about joy is not something that poets really do. And I don't know what's wrong with us. Ross Gay tried to lead us into the light. He tried. And I think we hadn't quite made it there with him. But I don't know. Part of me thinks joy is something to protect. And like, I don't know how to put that into the right words. Like, even these poems, I was like, yeah, this is it. But like, I also don't want anybody to have this part of me. I don't care if you have my anger, my sadness, all that. But like, my joy, ugh, like that just feels too close.
Does writing about it feel like it can be taken from you?
Yes, it feels like you're jinxing it, honestly. This is how I feel. That putting it on paper is like, oh no, now I'm acknowledging that this thing exists, that I feel it. And I also know that everything ends, not necessarily by divorce or by breakup, but like, you know, one day one of us won't be here. And this feeling will be something I have to look back on. And putting it down almost makes that reality more apparent, I guess.
I
So,
know I feel it, but if I told you that, can you read that one?
okay, I know I feel it, but if I told you that, I have to also tell you that I love the rectangle of air between your index finger and thumb when you really have a point to make. Nerding out on Black literature and what America means and how language works. On the words you drop in conversation or in a text thread that you know, and that sometimes I know too. And sometimes I have to look up, and I hope you don't think less of me for it. I love the mystery of your vocabulary, the expansive way it sprawls. I'd also have to tell you the way you sing out loud, no matter the time of day or night, no matter where we are, makes me feel like there's maybe a way to build joy out of breath alone. I'd have to tell you that my breaths feel like love now, too. I'd have to tell you that the taste of morning on your lips is sweet as childhood Kool-Aid and as fresh as its shimmy over ice. I'd have to tell you I can't stop drinking it. I'd have to tell you that just to be near you, just there in the room, even if there's football on, because there's always football on, and I hate football, that nearness feels like the exhale Whitney Houston and Loretta Devine and Angela Bassett and even Leela Roshan yelling at Bubba from Forrest Gump off her balcony wanted to feel. I can stretch into our love. I have to tell you that what I feel is bright and loud, even in this endless chamber of grief. I wish my dad could meet you. I wish I could meet yours. I want to tell you that I love you, but then I'd have to say it all.
And I just have to ask the question, and you can ignore me and not answer it if you want to, because it is personal. How long after writing this poem did you tell him that you loved him?
Okay, so this was a battle of wills, I think. Well, he might not agree. But I feel like I knew pretty early on. We started as a long distance couple, And so things get real ramped up because you're just like trying to reach across so many miles. I was not the first one to say it. And I don't even remember. I want to say I wrote this poem after he told me, because that's the only place it would be safe. It wouldn't make sense for me to write this before, because that would be jinxing it. You see what I'm saying? So I'm pretty sure I wrote both way after that moment. These were not the last, but like they were in the last batch of poems that I wrote. So it was like at least a year or two after it happened.
Okay. Thank you for indulging my nosiness.
No problem.
So with this being, as it says, your most personal collection, writing about the rawness of the grief you feel, the elation of the love, and the sometimes despair of the country, even as you find ways to navigate what's happening, what do you want readers to take from your collection?
I think the thing that I always want people to take is that I am human and that I was here. As a Black
Mm.
writer, I think that's what we are doing. And it's sad that we're still doing it, but we are really just still trying to say we are human beings. We have the full range of human emotions and experiences, and we were here. You can't erase us. So I hope that that's what's taken, but I also hope that people who are experiencing any type of grief feel like there's someone in their corner with them. I've already heard from people who have seen some of the poems that are out already that this helped them in dealing with their own grief process. So I do hope it does that as well. And I hope everybody looks at my dad's picture on the front of this book and knows that he was here. If he were alive, I promise you, he would be selling these books to everybody he saw. I think he would be so excited. Yeah, I think that's what I want people to take.
All right. So then that takes me into our speed round in our game before I let you go for what's becoming the afternoon. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book right now is James by Percival Everett.
Who is your favorite author right
Lucille
now?
Clifton.
Oh, okay.
Lucille Clifton is forever my favorite author.
You might revise that, but who was your favorite poet?
Lucille Clifton is the same person.
Okay. What is the difference, if you think there is a difference, between poetry and spoken word?
I don't think there's a difference in what it is we're doing. We are all writing poetry. I think the difference is put on us by listeners.
Name a poet you think people don't know enough about.
I will answer that question by saying I wish people research the poets that are in their actual state who are living right now.
Good advice. What do you think is the best book to film or book to series adaptation?
I might say from comic book to movie, Black Panther is excellent. I think they've taken what they needed to take and made it work.
I'll allow it. It's still a book. If money were no object, where would you go? Where would you live? And what would you do?
I would not have a job. That's the first one. I would go everywhere. I would take my family to visit Africa. We would go to India. We would go to Switzerland. We would go to France, everywhere. I would be everywhere. I would have a different house in every single place I could and just travel, forever. And I would still write. I would be writing still.
Name 3 things on your bucket list.
To be Poet Laureate of the US, I'd like to become a bestseller for some book that I write. I want to see my name on a bestseller list. And this one's kind of sappy. I want to have a beautiful home with space for both of our moms to live, with space to grow vegetables, maybe a few animals. Like I want the Jones compound that I can just gate off from the world.
I like that. What brings you joy?
Being creative brings me the most joy, and experiencing creativity, because I do think these are gifts that we're given from God. So I feel very joyful knowing that the world is full of art and being able to participate in it.
What is your favorite sound?
My mom's laugh.
If you were a color, what color would you be?
Green.
And what brings you peace?
Feeling safe. So I'm going to say my boyfriend right now.
Aww.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Our game is called Rewriting the Classics. Classic is however you define it. Name one book you wish you would have written.
Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. I wish I was smart like her.
Name one book where you want to change the ending, and how would you do it?
So my friend Angela Jackson Brown, who you should also have on here if you have not.
She came on for her book in my first season, All the Stars.
Yeah, it's something like that. But her book, The Light Always Breaks, I'm not going to spoil it, but she got me with that ending. I would change that ending and stop that plane. She was wrong for it. She was absolutely wrong for what she did.
I have that book. I have not read that book because the way Angela did me at the end of the first book
Yep.
about Stars Rain Down.
That's what she does.
I told her I cried the last 60 pages of When Stars Rain Down. So when I got The Light Always Carries in the mail and I'm reading this description, I was like, I'm not playing with Angela today. I have not read it.
Don't do it, because I'm mad at her to this day, and we're friends. But I've told her, you didn't have to do that. But she says, of course I did. I'm like, okay, you know your own characters, but also
you didn't.
I knew it could have
like
been different.
I still think about the fact that I finished reading her book When Stars Rain Down the day that I interviewed her, like that morning. So I'm up at like 5, 6 in the morning finishing this book. And the last 60 pages, I am in shambles. I am just boohoo crying.
Yeah.
Like I know this lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I like that one. So my messy question, and you work in academia, so shade all the, dead folks. Name a book that you think is overrated or overtaught.
The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot.
Didn't even finish the question.
Hey, I'm ready. I have beef with T.S. Eliot. If he made it to heaven and I make it, it's on site. It's on site. Oh, I cannot stand that. So I don't know if you've read The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot.
My T.S. Eliot stops with the Chronicles of Narnia, okay?
It's a poem. It's a long poem. And it has so many allusions. Like, you can't even read one stanza without having to look up something. And I'm not saying I don't like rigor. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you intentionally wrote this confusing piece just to say, look how much knowledge I have and look how much you don't. I don't like that. I don't like it.
I can tell it's on site once you get to them pearly gates.
It's on site.
My final question. When you are dead and gone and among the ancestors, reunited with your daddy, what would you like someone to write about the legacy of words and work that you left behind?
I hope that they will say, I was who I said I was, and that I did my best to be good to my people.
Big thank you to Ashley M. Jones for being here today on Black and Published. You can follow Ashley on the socials at City of a Woman on Instagram and Threads. And make sure you check out Lullaby for the Grieving, out now from Hub City Press. You can get a copy of the collection from Mahogany Books and get 10% off your first purchase using code BLACKPUB at checkout. That's BLKPUB. That's our show for the week. If you liked this episode and want more Black and Published, head to our Instagram page. It's at Black and Published, and that's BLK and Published. There, I've posted a bonus clip from my interview with Ashley about the most rewarding part of her process as a poet. Make sure you check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll holler at y'all next week when our guest will be Lizzie Damilola Blackburn, author of The Rewrite.
I was inspired by some of the conversations that I have with my husband, and even, he's married, and he's in a secure relationship, but, some of the, not to give too much of his business away, but some of the insecurities that he feels, some of the pressures that he feels. And then also just like our general conversations about how social media has kind of impacted men and their manhood as well.
That's next week on Black and Published. I'll talk to you then. Peace.
What's going on, family? This is Derek Young
and Ramonda Young,
owners of both Mahogany Books and the Mahogany Books Podcast Network.
We really want to thank each and every one of you for listening to this episode. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, drop us a review and rate us on whatever platform you download podcasts on.
We truly appreciate each and every one of you for supporting us and making us your go-to for Black books. And we look forward to connecting with you all sometime in the future.
Thank you again, fam. And always remember, Black books matter.